I've read over 60 books this year, and a good amount of those were classics, so these are the top 10 classics I've read in 2025. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry is a book I read way back in January, and 11 months later, this book is still one of the greatest books I have ever read in my life. Masterful storytelling, unforgettable characters, 800 pages, and by the time I was through, I wanted a whole another 800 pages. If there was one book that I could forget everything about just so I could read it all over again, Lonesome Dove would be that book. If Beale Could Talk is the book that showed me that James Baldwin writes love as if he was love itself. This book follows Fonnie and Tish, a young black couple in 1970s Harlem, as Tish and her family tries their absolute hardest to get Fonnie out of jail for a crime that they are adamant he did not commit. I did a review on this that I did way back in March or February, so check that out if you want to hear me yap about it. And then watch the 2018 film adaptation directed by Barry Jenkins. Don't even get me started on that soundtrack. The Fire Next Time is one of James Baldwin's non-fiction works, probably his most famous non-fiction ever. This is split into two parts. The first part is called My Dungeon Shook, which is a letter that James Baldwin wrote to his namesake nephew on the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. The second part in this is called Down at the Cross, where James Baldwin talks a lot about Christianity, his experience with the black church, his meeting with Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, really just his feelings on America as a whole and what he felt like black Americans should do going forward. After reading this, you will see how this shaped the civil rights movement and why James Baldwin is timeless. I Know What a Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou is one of the greatest books I have ever read in my life. Maya Angelou was born in 1928 and she passed away just over a decade ago in 2014, which is important to understand because a lot of people for some reason try to act like this history was just ages ago. It was not. There are people still living today who had to go through things that no human should ever have to endure. Maya Angelou writes about these harsh realities with the grace and radiance that only a poet could. The Great Seraph by John Steinbeck. I have a full review on this, so check that out if you want to hear me yap about it. But this is the book that showed me that the great American dream was nothing but labor exploitation and the deliberate displacement of migrants who are just desperately trying to survive. Sula by Toni Morrison is my favorite Toni Morrison of all time. It's about two best friends named Sula and Nella who grew up together in the bottom, and who by the end you'll wonder if they were ever really best friends in the first place. There is so much symbolism and subtext loaded into this book that you will really have to pay close attention to catch all the parallels that Toni Morrison is doing. Passing by Nella Larsen, and while I'm at it, I'll throw in Quicksand by Nella Larsen as well. Nella Larsen is a classic writer that I feel like does not get the credit she deserves. A Harlem Renaissance icon who only released these two novels before public scrutiny basically forced her to retire. The way Nella Larsen writes, I truly feel like she could have been a contemporary of Jane Austen or the Bronte sisters. She has such high class and lush and just gorgeous writing. I think both of these were really good, but my personal favorite had to be Passing. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This is a series of stories between four Chinese women and their first generation Chinese American daughters. If you're someone who enjoys books or movies about family and relationships and how cultural gaps affect that, I highly recommend this. A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi. I think you almost have to read this if you're interested in African literature, specifically during the years of 1952 to about 1963, which were the years of the Mau Mau Uprising, a history of Kenya I had no clue about until I read this book.